U.S. Air Force retired, Vice President for Defense, AFCEA International.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy's the only one that followed instructions. Good afternoon. All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this. Before I begin this afternoon's session, just want to note that this panel did receive approval for continuing education units, and that's through CompTIA, GIAC, and Cert Nexus. So if you're interested in those CEUs, make sure that you stay for the full panel. And if you're an AFCEA member seeking attendance documentation, please scan your badge on your way out with the iPad that's back there in the center. If you're not a member, you can go ahead and stop by booth number, I'll do what Susan did, booth number 2933 today to join. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today, Lieutenant General Matt Glavey. And this is not in the script, but General Glavey and I go way back. We were at the White House military office at the same time, and back when General Glavey was in 06, and he was the commander of HMX-1, so he was the president's helicopter pilot while I was commanding the White House Communications Agency. So, sir, certainly good to see you again and be working together here. General Glavey was commissioned in May of 1986 through the Naval Academy. The other academy, sir, I'm Air Force, but you obviously did a teeny bit better than me, so congratulations there. Upon receiving his wings in September of '88, he was selected to fly the CH-46 Seahawk. And he retired in 2024, just last year, after a stellar 38-year career in the Marine Corps, culminating where he wore 3 hats, as the Deputy Commandant for Information, the Commander of Marine Corps Forces Strategic Command, and the Director of Marine Corps Intelligence. He's got a dynamic panel up here today featuring representatives from the Army, Coast Guard, Air Force, Marine Corps, National Guard, and also our allied partner, German Air Force. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General Glavey, and he will introduce his panel.
Reception staging and onward movement of gear into European Command. Of course, that changes into maintenance and readiness of equipment that's flowing into theater. Of course, all this to support the Ukraine war. And then ultimately, they lead into targeting operations that are so impressive. But the common denominator through all of that from the commander was data. right? And the ability to operate in the cyber domain unfeathered, to have all the agility and the maneuver in order to do the most important thing that a 3-star JTF headquarters has to do, make decisions, right? That's everything that changed in the course of those missions, which are significant in nature, by the way, different, takes months of training for commands to be ready to do those. What he changed was the data layer. And it was powerful. And why? It wasn't just the commander wanted something. No, the commander drove it. He understood ubiquitous transport. He understood compute and store. He understood the difference between a GPU and a CPU. He understood what it took, what he was asking for his staff to do, and the decisions they had to make based on data. It was really a powerful lesson, and I think a precursor to where the Joint Force needs to go. But with this august body, none of it happens without the cyber domain. I thought we'd spend a little time talking about it, both the pluses and the minuses, but and really the outcomes that we need to generate living in that environment. So I'm going to briefly introduce our panel, and then after that, they're going to provide a little insight from their backgrounds, and then we're going to go into a lightning round right after that, a very quick hitting questions. So our first panel member, right? It's awesome having the allies and partners here with us today, nothing finer than the German army. And so it's great having General Fleischmann here. General Fleischmann commands Germany's cyber and information domain support forces. He's the Deputy Chief of Staff for capabilities at his cyber command, and important critically in creating the first cyber operations structure in advanced European doctrine. Probably what's most important as well to that very impressive resume, he's also president of an AFCEA International chapter in Bonn, Germany, right, sir?
Yes.
Hey, how many people can say they have an active duty general as their president? There you go, ma'am. That's pretty good stuff. Sir, thanks for being here. Mr. Ken McNeil, of course, Mr. Ken McNeil needs no introduction. He's the CIO of the Guard Bureau, and having done so many CIO meetings with Ken, I'll just tell you this. If you're in the National Guard, he's got your back, because no one fought harder for capabilities for our young women and the incredible mission that they have than Ken. And it made the meetings go a little bit longer, but Ken, that was okay, because the cause was righteous, my man. But thanks for everything you do. Long career in the Army, just doing incredible stuff. Next, we got Captain Joe Muse, United States Coast Guard. He's the Deputy Commander of Coast Guard Cyber Command. Also, as a Coast Guardsman, he's done 1,000 jobs. If you look at the active Commandant of the Coast Guard, is actually a lawyer. The Coast Guard has many hats, many professions. They do just about everything. No different here. Joe spent a lot of time in the counter-narcotics business. He's a real operator, and again, fits perfectly in what he's doing in cyber. Next, we got Colonel John Picklesheimer. Oh, I got it out of order. Sorry there. I'm going to go with you, John, next. He commands the 67th Cyberspace Wing down at 16th Air Force, leads global Air Force cyber combat operations, defending networks, and enables strategic effects. So really impressive what 16th Air Force does across the board. John, great having you here. Next, we got Colonel Jasecki, United States Army. Colonel Jasecki is the Director of Enterprise Cloud Management Agency for the Army's Chief Information Officer, doing incredible work, a lot of operational experience where the sound of the guns are. So thanks for being here. Finally, we got, last but not least, my favorite Marine down at the end. It's always good having Marines that are smarter than you on your staff, and that was no different. My interaction with Dennis, PhD at Virginia Tech. I'll just kind of start there and we'll go. But Dennis right now is the G3, Director of Operations at U.S. Marine Corps Forces Cyberspace Command. Lots of combat time and time in the operational forces working comm. Okay. So that's our elite panel. I'm going to turn it over to them now, and we're going to go down and hear what they have to say a few minutes each. So, General, over to you, sir, to kick us off.
Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you very much. For me, it's a great honor to be on this stage together with his comrades. I'm coming from the Cyber Information Domain Command headquarters in Bonn, and I want to thank you, US, especially for the hint gave us in 2014 and 2015. We spoke with the former director NSA in Cybercom, Admiral Rogers, and he said, okay, combine it together. This is a good idea. Then we put all, let's say, the strategic CIS, Intel, Geo, operational communications, cyber defense and cyber offense forces together in one service. And just now, for a few years, in Germany we have like Army, Navy, Air Force, and support. We have also a domain, a full service responsible for cyber and information domain. And we name it cyber and information domain because in 2014 and 2015, the main focus on cyber lies on network, not on the information. And we saw that the information is the most very important point. So we named it cyber and information domain. And now we have a cyber domain, information domain headquarters in Bonn. So we have about, to explain it, about 15,000 personnel in total for all together. But coming back to data-centric operations, we want to focus on 7 key actions. The first one is when we want to do data-centric operations, I think we have to establish unified data governance. This is very, very important. This is the first thing we have to do, and just now we are working on it. Then the second point I want to mention is leverage AI and automation. We use artificial intelligence and machine learning to detect threats in real time and accelerate decision making. So this is very important. The third point is to prioritize a zero trust architecture. It's very important, but just now in Germany we're implementing cloud activities, and a cloud without zero trust, you can forget it. So implement zero trust architecture on every layer, like identity, device, network, and application. Then the fourth point is what we pay attention is operational data at the edge. So we have to enable the warfighter with secure real-time access to mission-critical data in contested and disconnected environments. This is very important. The fifth point is we have to integrate cyber into mission. So embedded cyber capabilities into operational planning to ensure data flows. This is very, very important. In Germany, in the cyber information domain headquarters, we are just planning at the moment a cyber information domain component command to integrate it. And in NATO, we are nearly one of the first nations which try to integrate such a component command. The main focus is to invest in interoperability, to ensure platform, sensors, and systems that they can share and analyze data. This is very important. And in NATO, we are working on federated mission networking. Federated mission networking, FMN, is the answer to AMN, Afghanistan Mission Network, in the NATO context to get a common system. And finally, I think we have to continuously evolve with threats, so we have to adapt quickly through red teaming and so on. And the main message for me, we want to win together.
Hurrah. Love it. Thanks, sir. Well done. Mr. McNeil.
Well, first of all, thank you, General Glavy. It was a great honor serving with you with the DoD, CIO, MILDEPS, a lot of high-speed marine information and future technology that I learned. I used to joke with you about, well, if I didn't put on the Army uniform, I think I would have tried to put on the Marine uniform. But it's an honor. So first of all, my mission space is I'm the CIO, J6 Director of the National Guard, responsible for over 430,000 soldiers and airmen. We're in every community, you know this story. We have over 3,200 armories, 90 wings on the air side, supporting this great nation here in the homeland and overseas. So I look at the National Guard, I like to open up by saying, this is not your grandfather's National Guard. We're an Army Swiss knife, meaning that we protect the homeland, we deploy overseas to support and defend this nation wars, but primarily the biggest thing that keeps me up at night is protecting the homeland. So we're going from a net-centric to data-centric organization. Certainly, we operate in these two areas. We're made up of the Army and the air. So in those two mission spaces, we have to be nested closely with the big Air Force and the Army. So what we've focused on, a couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to bring on a chief data officer and a chief technology officer. This is key, historic in the National Guard, because normally made up of two services, you kind of fall in line. And then something came out called Zero Trust, meeting that requirement in 2027. We learned quickly that we have to have a National Guard separate Zero Trust plan, not just rely on the two services. Because of our mission space and all of the information and the connected tissues from our civilian organizations that we deal with, non-government organizations in the 54 states and territories in the District of Columbia. We've made a lot of progress in that area, but certainly we have a ways to go. We think that we will meet that requirement, but of course it is our #1 priority as we tie in our now data mission space into supporting the 54 states and territories. The unique thing about the data aspect, I want you to imagine this. We have, when we go out in this country, whether it's supporting a wildfire, whether it's supporting any type of civil disturbance, the commanders, the adjutant generals, and of course the chief at the National Guard Bureau, my four-star that I work for, having relevant, quick information and having it in a data-centric environment, it can help the leadership make the decisions that they need to make without delaying capability in the states. That is huge for us. It's the mission set is not new, but how we pass information, how we use the data for leaderships to make the decisions that they need to make in a timely manner, it is new to the National Guard. So as we continue to move forward in the data-centric mission space, of course, the cybersecurity is also, I put it at neck and neck with the data. That's critical. Protecting our data. You can have all of the great data information and what you need as a task force commander or you know, a senior leader, but if it's not protected and it is not secured, of course, you know, you're operating in the blind, and the adversary knows that. So the cybersecurity piece is another area that we're really putting a lot of emphasis, continue to not support at the headquarters, but really down in the 54. That's the critical where actually the operations are going to take place. And we not only are working from a DoD perspective, we have to work with state, local, tribal communities. So that is key. I just left North Carolina meeting with the Adjutant General, and we had the DoD CIO, acting DoD CIO down with us to kind of look at how a state really operates, and you know, all of the civilian organizations that we have to connect to for any local and operation. And it was really eye-opening, because we tend to think just from a DoD perspective that we're going to be working with organizations that are on the same network, that have the same protocols, but in our mission space, it's not like that, especially for the homeland. So the cybersecurity piece and making sure that we are moving full speed ahead on the zero trust plan is really critical for us, and I think we're in a good space moving forward. The last point before I turn it over, the key is also upgrading our tactical communications that we use in the homeland. So the last big operation that we're a part of course, was Presidential Inauguration 60, right? Well, we had to communicate with every first responder and our industry partners. We have some great industry partners that support us. You know, I'm going to get in trouble by naming them all, but obviously FirstNet is one of our big teammates. We were able to use the capability, bring your own device. It's been like a staple for us for the last 5 years, where guardsmen who don't have GFE, 93% of them do not have government furnished devices, now have what they need on their personal phones. So just that modern moving forward with capability means a lot for the National Guard as we continue to go forward.
Thanks, Ken. Joe?
Yeah, thank you, sir. You're going to hear probably some similar discussions about incorporating data, securing our networks and such. For me, as the Deputy for Coast Guard Cyber, we have some of those same challenges, but one of the unique things that the Coast Guard does is that, you know, we're both an armed service with Title 10 authorities, but we are also a DHS organization, a DHS unit that has regulatory and law enforcement authorities, and that kind of makes us unique in that world. And where you see that uniqueness kind of play out is that we use our cyber protection teams in the marine transportation system protecting our ports. So we partner with industry, commercial, shipping, all of our different port partners to do cyber assessments to reduce the risk in our ports against enemies. So we're uniquely doing that on the data side in the Coast Guard. Obviously, you know, data, and we've incorporated in a data information officer at headquarters, and they have their own office, and we're still kind of new to this. But we're really trying to look at how can we utilize data to better focus limited resources. It can be things such as search and rescue, counter-drug operations, where we don't have unlimited resources in the field, but then taking that data to more focus that resources. And I think with the current administration, focus on the southern border, which is, you know, kind of our, well, that's kind of our wheelhouse. That becomes even more important as we're continuing to do the counter-drug mission, the illegal immigration mission, and now focusing more on fentanyl and some of those southern border issues. That data corporation to focus those resources has become even more important.
Thanks, Joe. Colonel Giuseppe?
Hi, good afternoon. It's really an honor to be here representing our cyber today. I'm oversee operations for the Army's enterprise commercial cloud, which I'm stuck in between the Army CIO and for policy and oversight and business systems, and our cyber for operations and security. So I really have like 5 flag officer or general officer bosses. It's fantastic. No, it really is. It's good. But on our cyber side, you know, really looking for data-centric operations from our cyber downtrace, and the focus is getting the right piece of information in the right hands at the right time in order to make a data-driven decision. So it's really about putting the information with the decision makers. And really 2 focus points from our cyber standpoint. One for their own internal missions. Operation and defense of the network, integration of systems, seeing themselves faster, better, and then also filtering out or supporting the information advantage focus that our cyber focuses on. And then the second focus of that is on the rest of the Army writ large and improving data-driven solutions down to commanders.
Thanks. John? Go ahead, John.
Oh, thanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Colonel John Picklesheimer, Commander 67 Cyberspace Wing. I'm here with my lead wingman, Chief Lance Power. Together we lead 3,000 gunslingers doing cyberspace operations every single day. In addition to that, being presented to U.S. Cyber Command, all of our teams doing that, leading capability development, testing those capabilities, training our airmen how to do that, and then putting them on the ranges to test and do that. And so we do that for inside the wing, we do it for the Cyber Mission Force, we do it for the larger DoD as well. And again, it's a privilege every day to bring those capabilities to bear. Part of what the chief and I do is our job is to set those conditions for success for our folks, and one of the ways we do that is through our mindset. And so that we ask them every single day as they come into the fight, come into work, bring that competition mindset. How are you competing today with the adversary? How are you competing with each other to be better? How are you bringing that to the sports field as well? How are you doing that in our exercises and our training exercises as well? We do that with partnerships. Cyberspace operations is a team sport. We do that with each other. We do that across teams. We do it across Cyber Command. We do it across the Joint Force. We do it inside the interagency. And we do it with our allies and partners for sure. And then, of course, we ask them to shine. And that's doing that excellence in all we do. We ask them to themselves shine. We ask them to help each other shine. And I'll tell you what, every place the chief and I go, the senior leaders that they work for, airmen are their warriors of choice. Every single place we go, because of the expertise they bring, the talent they bring, and that warrior mindset they bring to deliver the outcomes demanded by our senior leaders.
Thanks, John. Dennis, bring us home.
Okay, sir. First off, thanks for having me here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to see you all. Dennis Catolan, Marforce Cyber. I think some of the things that I'd like to touch on, really two critical points for us is, somebody said one time, a mentor of mine said, you need to go into the future, but you need to do it backing into it. Yeah. In other words, you need to look to the past in order to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. And I think as we talk cyberspace operations, I can't imagine anything that's been more profound in the conduct of warfare. And it's appropriate that I have an Air Force officer next to me. Nothing more profound in warfare prior to cyber than aviation. And right after World War I, there were two gentlemen on opposite sides of the Atlantic, Mitchell for us, and then a gentleman by the name of Duhay over in Italy. And both of them wrote great books, respectively, Wing Defense and Command of the Air. And they were saying some things about the inherent nature of aviation that is going to shift a lot of people's paradigms. Fundamentally, that aviation was fundamentally strategic, inherently offensive, and manifestly independent. In 1907, the United States military incorporated planes, and they were used by the Signal Corps. Planes were given to the Signal Corps to pass out letters. It took 2 world wars and a nuclear bomb for the United States Congress in 1947 to realize what those men were writing about when it came to aviation. And now I don't think anybody would second guess, what do we do with ground forces? Well, we make sure aviation's done its things first, then we figure out the ground scheme and maneuver. And I think when we talk cyberspace operations and the information environment, inherently we need to adapt to the nature of the IE. And from our perspective, there are 5 sort of truths: that information is inherently global, persistent, instantaneous. It compresses the levels of war and requires maneuver in all domains. I say that because that challenges a lot of the paradigms we have about combat. Certainly in the Marine Corps, we pride ourselves on being tactical, but there's so many strategic implications in the information environment. We pride ourselves on getting off the ship, onto the X, come back on, and then we go somewhere else. We do an exercise or an op, it starts here and ends there. The IE is persistent. So how do we adapt to that model? And in doing that, how do we deal with the ocean of information and data that is going to be necessary to get, as everybody else said, get the right information to the right people at the right time? I think that's been inherent in war throughout all of history, but this volume and this acceleration has kind of expanded it beyond what we've seen before. And so for us in the Marine Corps, I think one of the challenges or one of the priorities that we're focusing on is we pride ourselves on bringing a single battle concept to the joint force. These folks own the air, land, and maritime domains. I think we pride ourselves in maneuvering in all those domains in a little small cell. The single battle is in cyber. I think one of our challenges is to get cyber into the single battle. So to get every Marine to be proficient at speaking the language of security, data, and I'll just sort of say, using the model of, I feel like in the Marine Corps, sir, we have treated cyberspace a little bit the way we treated the aviation combat element, which is we know the functions of aviation, close air support, aerial reconnaissance, all those things, but the rest of the MAGTF, we don't do those things. You folks do those things. And we know to use that, we know to leverage it, but you folks do it. When it comes to logistics, though, everybody in the Marine Corps knows logistics. Every commander fears phasmo. So everybody does it, but it's a failing recipe for an MLG commander to be burdened to do maintenance for everybody in the MAGTF. It makes no sense. So what we'd like to do is to have cyber and information as a warfighting function being given parity with logistics. Every commander knows they have to do logistics. Amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics, the old 20th century adage. Currently in the 21st century, I think we need to think that amateurs talk tactics and professionals talk, information and assured C2 moving forward. Yes, sir.
Dennis, thank you. Really insightful. Okay, for the next portion, I want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, to get them into the portal there. We'd like to do a quick lightning round. And this is just some quick hitting questions, kind of get some information out fast, 5 seconds or less, a sentence or less. But Dennis, we're going to start down at your end and work our way back to the general. But here it goes. So everybody's going to answer the same question. So right after you, Dennis, it's John. And you guys got it. Okay, here we go. The greatest threat to international security today.
I would offer its infiltration of American society through social media, in particular unattributed data that influences the American population.
Wow, that was heavy.
Soft borders throughout the world.
Exploitation of critical infrastructure.
Joe.
Disinformation, misinformation.
Ken.
I would say, from a guard perspective, critical infrastructure.
Like it.
From the German perspective, Russia.
Aha, very good. Sir, starting with you and then we'll go back down. Best leadership book you ever read?
Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
I love it.
I'm a Patton fan, so I would say George Patton.
All right.
On Becoming a Leader, Warren Bennis. That's a good book.
Got Me Started, Battle by John Toland.
Wow, old book. John?
Lincoln on Leadership.
Curious by Ian Leslie.
Okay, great. Dennis, now to you. What's the biggest barrier to innovation in warfare today?
I would offer its paradigms of culture and sense of communities, digging into the communities that we have for the fight that we had yesterday as opposed to the success we need in the future. Sir.
John?
Fear of being removed for failure when trying.
Wow.
Sluggish procurement.
We are, like our own human resource system, identifies folks who are really good at following rules, and then all of a sudden, at the end of 30 years, hey, we want you to be innovative. So I think oftentimes the enemy is us.
Ken?
We always did it that way. If you have that attitude, you'll never get there.
Okay. Courage to fight against bureaucracy and large numbers of regulations.
Oh, man, you know that. Okay, sir, we'll start with you. Which technology will shape warfare the most in the next 5 years?
AI with regard to control autonomous systems.
Oh, wow, you took mine. AI.
That's right. No, that.
Unmanned systems.
Artificial intelligence.
Virtual reality.
AI.
Good. All right, back to you, Dennis. Most impactful domain over the next 10 years, maritime, land, air, space, or cyberspace. You have to pick one.
Sir, despite the MagTaf nature in me, I gotta say cyberspace.
I think it's space.
Cyberspace.
Maritime.
Cyberspace.
Cyberspace, of course.
All right. You guys got that. Okay, sir, now to you. I should have done this, I should have in the Deutschmark, but if you had $1 billion to invest tomorrow, where would it go?
So it's the same whether it's euro or US.
Yeah, yeah.
The dollar, it's the same at the moment, or nearly the same. So AI and security, drones and space capabilities.
Wow, good answer. We need that on the...
AI and cybersecurity.
Youth education, health education.
AI chip production.
Real property, infrastructure, and air conditioners in San Antonio.
So obviously AI, I think educating the force on cyberspace operations and in particular instituting a cyber inspection program akin to PhaseMoser. And then the other thing I think we would have to teach is investing money in critical thinking skills, both throughout public schools, but within the DoD as well.
Oh, wow, that's good. Okay, here's a light one, Dennis, to you. Your all-time most hated cyber buzzword.
Cyber hygiene.
Cyber sidearm.
I like cyber hygiene, but I'll say cyber.
Risk management.
I would say cyber hygiene.
AI.
Oh no.
You can't have it both ways. Okay, sir, now to you, what is the greatest strength of your service's cyber force?
That it is underestimated.
Ken?
So, civilian acquired skills. Over 430,000 guardsmen. We have a great cyber skill workforce that when they take off the uniform, they're doing cyber every day.
The Coast Guard's unique authorities and law enforcement authorities that we can kind of blend in with the DoD.
We have a good talent pipeline into the information dominance career field.
The humility of our airmen.
I'd offer that it's the Marine Corps culture, sir, in particular the cultural paranoia that compels us to deliver results as fast as possible.
Thanks, Dennis. I'm going to kind of skip to the last two just based on time. So Dennis, back to you. It's in the past 10 years, have we gotten better or worse at cybersecurity?
I would offer we've gotten better. I wouldn't say we are where we need to be, but I think we've gotten better. Sure.
John?
We understand the problem better.
I think we've gotten better.
Yeah, better.
I think we got better.
We got better, also the threats have also increased.
So that's right back to you on the next question. So this will be the last one for the lightning round. In the past 10 years, have we outpaced the adversary in cybersecurity?
No, and we would do well not to assume that.
Ken?
No, not at all.
I don't know.
Fair?
I think we've outpaced them, but staying ahead is becoming increasingly difficult.
I think we're in constant competition with persistent engagement.
I will agree. I don't know. I hate that answer, but I think it's probably the truthful one.
All right, that's fair. Okay, so again, just a reminder, we're going to open the last 15 minutes up for questions and answers from the crowd. We'll go into some a little more prolonged, thoughtful answers on this next section, and then leading up to, again, the audience. So I'm going to do this, and I'll let you pipe in as many folks as want to, and I'm going to go through as many on the list as we get to, but again, take the time that you need to answer. So here it is, number one. How are you using data and artificial intelligence to drive decision making, and where do you see the biggest opportunities and risk in the years ahead? Anybody?
So I want to take that. So we've last year we started a pilot called Project Thea, and we were using it for prediction AI with the wildfires in California. right? So, you know, the tools, the technology is out there. But I want to go back to this. You can have all the tools, everything you need, but protecting that information is key, right? The adversary, especially in our mission space, something that a lot of people don't think about. We respond to a homeland operation. The adversary would love to be in there taking data and information that you're using for critical decision makers and making that information where it's questionable, right? And so we're concerned about that. That's not overseas, that's here in the homeland. So I look at that as a big time we have to pay attention to.
Anybody else on that question?
The Army's focused a lot right now on rolling out what we've called for a while the unified network, which for the Army is a big deal, integrating all of our disparate networks all over the place from from the various compos. That's enabling us to put more feeds into not only the IT operations, but the cyberspace field. So integrating across our program executive offices, our acquisition, the operations, gives us a better feel for seeing data flow and other things across cyberspace.
Good.
You know, from a smaller network standpoint, where we don't have as many airmen to look at that piece of it, really engage with a couple of our industry partners in bringing, you know, we say AI as a buzzword. Actually, how do you really use that? And partnering with some folks to bring that into a SOC location, pull all the data feeds, and then let the AI actually analyze it, provides them those quick insights, and then let airmen go and dig deep into the harder part.
Yeah, I would offer that the number one thing, I'd say two things that we're really focusing on at Mar4 Cyber when it comes to AI is, you know, working with Eric Slater and the team over at the G9 is the first one is using AI for intelligence. I think that is, you know, throughout the enterprise, it's really, again, it's a global domain and the internet is everywhere, and anything that, you know, we tend to focus myopically on our own service, but, you know, it's transparent to me if PRC or Russia is engaging all of these folks, you know, is that part of a broader campaign? What specifically are they getting after? Why are they getting after it? You know, we struggle. We've started a process at Mar4 Cyber where we're tracking manually any significant activity reports that the other services are making, like, hey, the Air Force had this or the Army had that. We had this. What can we tell from that? Wouldn't it be great if there was an AI that was going through that ocean of data persistently and saying, I think they're going to do this, and then can downgrade that from TS to SIPR and say, tell your operating force, tell your infantry and your aviation commanders that this is happening in their backyard and they should do these things. That would be very powerful. And I think the other part is you know, focusing on the defensive cyber piece, you know, getting AI as part of hunt missions, I think would be very powerful. Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Okay. What lessons have you taken from the recent cyber intrusions, the Volt Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, and a couple others, or adversary campaigns on how they are shaping your command's posture going forward? Who wants that, sir?
I would like to start. We see AI as a game changer in multiple ways. For example, scaling up attacks, lowering barriers for low-skilled actors drastically, more sophisticated social engineering, and automatic spear phishing, or more authentic information operations to get better deepfakes. So the main threats and the main actors, I think we have the same advisor. So Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. And what do we do against it? We have some mitigation strategies. First is, and the main focus is empowering people, continuous training. So it's very important to recognize, for example, phishing. The second point is information exchange. So zero-day exploits, malware. In Germany, we follow at the moment the software-defined defense approach. So rapid and development, this is very important. So also DevSecOps. I've saw some areas with DevSecOps outside, and research and experimentation. And therefore, we implemented a cyber agency, a cyber innovation hub, and a cyber defense institute at our German Armed Forces University at Munich.
Oh, well done. Anybody else? Joe?
I would offer one of the lessons we've learned in like ransomware attacks in the field is how quickly our C2 structure can kind of be challenged. And we're so used to operating in a kinetic environment that you know, our enemies don't really, they don't have a good respect for the random geographic boundaries that we've kind of drawn around the world. And as such, we've had to put a pretty concerted effort to field commanders to educate them on cyber operations, to understand you know, how these things can spread, you know, across their, whatever their geographic domain and their terrain is, and that there's a cyber terrain that's kind of laid over on that. And for folks like in the Coast Guard who are doing counter narcotics or search and rescue or working with the industry on a day in, day out, you know, for them, a cyber incident might be once every 3 months, and it's pretty quickly, they're not in that mindset. So it's taken a pretty concerted effort for us to kind of educate field commanders on what's happening in the cyber realm to get after some of these ransomware and attacks that happen in industry.
I'm going to piggyback off of that. It probably being the oldest person on this panel, we have to get a environment, a culture where cybersecurity, and this is commander's business, right? We've developed things like the scorecard, cybersecurity scorecard, and other tools. But quite frankly, I kind of preach this a lot, right? This is just not your CIO business, your CISO business, cybersecurity officer business. This is commander's business. So it's changing an environment to say, just like any weapon system, right? You have to be in the ball game. Because when you have things like the human error, you know, things not being patched and those, you know, other human error piece, I think that those are self-inflicted, and certainly that's leadership that can drive the train better in that environment.
Thanks, Ken. Dennis?
Yeah, so I would offer, you know, to the point of informing commanders, I think one of the biggest gaps we have is, you know, the impetus, it's really on us as folks that are operating in the cyber realm. I think sometimes we wait for the folks in the operating forces to incorporate us, as opposed to those of us that speak their language, meet them where they are, speak their language, and integrate with them. And I think having empathy for just the ridiculously high op tempo that the operating forces have. I mean, sir, a MU commander, that's 2 full-time jobs done by 1 human being. And you know, the reason why I think they haven't incorporated cyber as well as I'm sure we would like is because at first it seems highly technical. I'm not that technical of a person, right? So there's that adage. And then the other piece is, when am I going to fit this stuff in? And I think what we're trying to do at Mar4 Cyber is, hey, look, the cyber rock, sorry, it's a warfighting domain that you're using, that rock is going to get put into your pack. And you know, we've all heard the phrase, you know, if you're going to add a rock in the pack, take a rock out. Can't take another rock out. It's not like you can turn away from maintenance and leadership responsibility. So I think what we're trying to do is take that rock and make it as small as possible, and to say, hey, commander, we saw this during the Commandant Service Level War Games, sir. When it came to air, land, sea threats and IPB against a carrier strike group or a MU ARG, this munition from the Adversary is going to take out the carrier strike group. All of a sudden, the war game stopped, and the commander got super curious. Hey, tell me everything about that munition, the commander, the size of the unit, the magazine capacity, logistics, command and control, all of it. But we end it with, and you can expect, the PRC to be active in cyberspace. Like, what is a commander supposed to do with that? So if we can get them intelligence that's actionable, that is succinct, 60 seconds or less in the IPB, And we can give them tools like BDP and say, hey, look, within BDP chaos, there's this tool, sir. If you can put sensors on your network, talk to your commo, that you can assess your cybersecurity posture in a very easy way. CAD has this, you know, and there are tons of tools that do that, that say, hey, look, here's your cybersecurity posture on a score of 1 to 10. And if it goes beyond 4, it goes from green to yellow, yellow to red. An infantry officer, a flying squadron commander, they can grasp that. Like, yeah, red bad, green good, low number good, high number bad. Okay, we're done with that. Okay, who's going to update and patch those devices? Great. Okay, talk to me about maintenance of my trucks. Good. Let's go to range 400. If we can get cyber, the cyber rock, to be a cyber pebble, meet them where they are and speak their language, having empathy for their high op tempo, I think we'll have a lot more traction with the operating forces being part of the cyber effort as opposed to just us being cyber maneuverists.
Well said, Dennis. We have a couple more on here, but I really want to see what we have from the audience here in our last 15 minutes or so. Have an opportunity there. I know we'll read them from the back. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. We've got a few questions lined up. The first one, can you provide an example of when adversaries tried or succeeded in exploiting or weaponizing information and and data-centric operations were able to deter the effort?
Probably got something to say about that, but I'll see what we got for the panel.
Sorry, sure, go ahead. But
I was going to ask for a little clarity on the question. It was how adversaries have exploited our data. Is that the question?
Exploited or weaponized our information, and we were able to deter the effort through data-centric operations.
So I can give this a try. So, and I think this is one of the things about the information environment that's so exciting. You know, I can't tell you how many times there's been discussions by young Marines who joined the Marine Corps post 9/11, and you know, just talk to them and they say like, I missed out. I didn't go to the fight. And, you know, telling them like, hey, when you're in the information space, there is no exercise. You're operating 24/7, and let's not be pejorative about that. Let's actually give examples. So we were going to do an exercise somewhere in Europe, and we were using intelligence that while this scenario was going on for the exercise, which we were really not saying we were oblivious to, but we were aware. We had intelligence that real-world actors were going to try and do things against our networks. And there was one of the things that we found out was that there were adversaries that were going to try and deny us the ability to conduct the exercise by denying us access to the electromagnetic spectrum. And there was an operation that occurred as a result of that where we anticipated how they were going to do it. And we're talking about second lieutenants, lance corporals. None of them are cyber operators. They're just Marines that in the operating forces, same way as all of our folks. But I think acknowledging that the exercise, especially when you're forward deployed, is an operation that you need to outmaneuver our adversaries against. I will say in this particular instance, a second lieutenant communications officer that I made our squadron S2, sir, ended up saying, hey, look, we got some intel just at the secret level. We think they're going to try and do this thing. And I was like, okay, we'll see if they do that thing. And he's like, sir, yeah, what's going on, Dan? He's like, they're doing the thing. I was like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? And he's like, well, decision support matrix that I gave you, I think we should do what you approved. I was like, great idea, go do that. And he did that, and we worked with our coalition partners, and folks got rolled up. So I would say not only were they not able to do what they needed to do, but I think that the basic tenets of planning degraded their ability to do it again. And so I would offer to everybody, having the mindset that an exercise is an operation, certainly forward deployed, all the heuristics of planning and good leadership from that lieutenant onward were applicable there. So I would say, yeah, very doable.
I think I would offer the counter ransomware campaigns that we've seen over the last few years where U.S. persons' information or business information had been exploited in some way. But through that strategy of defend forward, going forward and disabling those ransomware attacks before they could be launched against U.S. persons, U.S. businesses, I think that's a way that we use those data-centric operations inside the command to counter those adversaries.
Thanks, John. Next one.
We know that service members are often early adopters of new tech. Two-part question. When it comes to commercial AI tools, what rules are currently governing or ought to govern the use of these tools by military service members? And the second part, what use cases might be appropriate for generative AI? And is there anything we should ban the use of Gen AI for?
The Air Force is limited from just a kind of a day-to-day use. We're using NIPR GPT is what we're allowed to use, for kind of automating some of the processes or really condensing a lot of information down into consumable ways of using that. And then we have a couple different applications on the high side that we're able to use for that. But really, kind of back to the example I used earlier, is bring a couple different AI tools into our SOC to really pare down those information. That's where we're allowing our airmen to get after those problem sets.
On the business side, maybe the Army is has adopted a large language model that's available across the force to look at specific use cases. In one case, in the HR domain, we took a bunch of PDs and enabled the contract or the hiring agency to use an LLM to reassess and reclassify hundreds of thousands of PDs in a day and get it done. And we're looking for use cases across kind of that field from an LLM. And then we're really trying to centralize the use of generative AI and make sure things aren't being done on personal devices or personal accounts.
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that. So obviously we follow the two services, the Army and Air, but this is why it's critical to have, approved capability. And I want to go back to bring you on the vice. When we developed the first capability, we obviously had to partner with not only the DoD-CIO, but the Army, HQDA. In our environment, because, most of our force is traditional force, having the right capabilities for them when they're not in uniform, but still have to perform, have communications back and forth and planning for drills and things of that nature and even deployments. It is key to have clear, concise, information out to the force on what can be used and not. Because of all the technology out there that sounds good, we may want to use in our civilian world, but in our environment with sharing of information, we have to really pay attention to that.
For generative AI, we do especially a risk analysis for the large language model. Yeah? So we can rely on that the system does not do anything what Germany, for example, didn't want to go against international law or something else. So we do a really risk analysis of our large language model, and especially when we need it, we designed an own for military use.
If I may, I think when it comes to AI, I have a bias, and I think most of us do when it comes to artificial intelligence, to sort of think it's going to be a cure-all, that it's going to accelerate everything. I think it does introduce certain liabilities as well. When we say AI, I think fundamentally there are three things we're looking for. Is something that's able to discover new information, to infer from that data what is going to happen, something that's anticipatory. And then the third piece is, does the AI, people say it's reasoning, but it's really synthesis, generating a proposed solution to that problem set. There are times when ChatGPT has been incorrect. There are times when AIs have been wrong. And I would offer, when it comes to the use or not use of AI, when it comes to governance, not to oversimplify, but I think the use and the application of AI in any endeavor in warfare applies the same way that we do, the nature of command and control, sir, which is, do you trust that individual making a recommendation? Sir, we got to make this thing, we got to go. It's like, well, it depends. If Colonel Katolan had a really good track record for you as your OPSO, then you'd be like, hey, I didn't check his homework, but Dennis has, been on the money every time. He's my guy. What he said, let's do that. Or if it's like, I don't know, 75% of the time you've been okay, 25% you've swung and missed pretty bad. I think more, then that gives you a moment of pause, right? So I would offer that if we're going to talk artificial intelligence, we have a bias towards wanting to use AI because it sounds cutting edge. I think it does offer some risk, but I think that risk gets mitigated by training with it, learning it, ubiquitous application in training environments so we can build that trust and build that comfort level. So just a thought.
I would offer that, we kind of grew up in a service where, in a kinetic service where, hey, you're taking risk and you're trying new things, and seems like it was pretty accepted. And I would love to, I think inherent to the question is, hey, young people utilize technology. How do we use this technology to our advantage? And frequently, the restrictions that we have on our folks for working in a skiff, and then some of the awareness, I don't think they have some of that same freedoms to be innovative with the technology.
Well said. Okay, I think there's one more.
Yes, sir. The final question from the audience. Can you paint a picture of how an O3 level warfighter empowered with data at the edge would leverage the benefits of that data, and how do we ensure that they are not overwhelmed with irrelevant information?
Anybody?
How do you not be overwhelmed by it?
Tough question.
Yeah.
So I think maybe at the edge, a good example is the TAC handheld, Android Tactical Assault Kit, right? That may be a good example. Maybe like the Army solution down to the lower edge, Android handheld applications. You can look at your map, you can geo-pinpoint things, missions come in, you can navigate yourself with GPS. There's cloud service offerings that you can put on top of it. There's little plugins you could put on top of it. The Army's been piloting and running a messaging chat app called Wicker through AWS. That one, through a plugin on that, puts messages right on top of that app. So I think that's a good example of at the edge, you have an E4 and E3 running an Android handheld, doing data back and forth off of a...
It's their TO weapon, right? It's how they grew up, it's what they know.
Yep.
And General Lawrence won't like me saying this, but God help us, we still have, a radio on our back with a radio operator squeezing the black out of a
It's a long day for the PRC 77 that I used to carry.
God help us, right? These kids grow up with, their fingertip feel and their ability to use the smart devices. That is really well said, and I appreciate the Army's done.
Sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
17 years old, who was walking her 9-year-old niece, I think to go out to lunch, when she heard a sound, turned around and saw 2 police officers. I don't mean to bring up old wounds, but it's kind of interesting that, the 25th of May will mark the 5-year anniversary of the tragedy that happened to George Floyd. Ms. Frazier was the one that took out her phone and recorded it. The aftermath of that is immeasurable, but there are some measurements that come into mind. 20 million people around the world protested in response to that. That was all throughout Europe, Ireland, Sweden, Finland. That was in Libya, South Africa, Japan, Pakistan, and India both had protests over that. China and Hong Kong, there were protests over that. That happened on the 25th of May. Within 2.5 weeks, the President of the United States is signing an executive order talking about restrictions on the use of force for all law enforcement throughout the United States in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of an election year. that 17-year-old injecting that information into the in the information space fundamentally potentially change the strategic landscape of the world. So how do we keep them from being overwhelmed? You know, as a Marine, we're expected to be, our Commandant has said, we're going to be the JTAC at the Joint Force. You know, could a young 18-year-old Marine with, you know, just focusing on their squad, their fire team, could they have an AI that says, you wouldn't know this, but the carrier strike group has this information requirement, and you just came across a thing without realizing it that I was able to assess, there's graffiti there that I was able to translate. I overheard people in the street that you were walking down, and this is all the information requirements that you're now going to be able to answer because you have placement and access. You need to know those things, and I'm going to send that up if you're okay with it. Yeah, cleared hot. That ability to exchange that data through placement and access is really, really powerful. But again, the compression of the levels of war, if a 17-year-old lady can do that with her iPhone, what can a Marine, Lance Corporal leading a fire team of Marines forward deployed in the Indo-Pacific be able to do with a little bit of generative AI?
I haven't met too many people on the forward edge of battle that complain about having too much information, typically. Yep. And so I don't think that's necessarily the problem. How do they process it quickly? They figure it out. It's the same reason that we do training and exercises. The same reason we do it now, same reason we did it in the 70s with a red flag, as we send pilots in for their first 10 combat missions into a red flag environment where they can understand what that battle space looks like. They can understand what their sensors are doing. They can go up against real adversaries and understand how to do that. And so we do that now still with our fighter pilots, and we do it now with our cyberspace operators. And that's how we understand how to deal with too much data.
All right, I think that concludes our panel. Big round of applause for these great members. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
General Lawrence, thanks for this opportunity. It was great. All right.
All right, I want another round of applause. General Levy, thank you for the lightning round. We got a lot of information in a short period of time on that, so thanks for the idea of that lightning round.
That's how I used to run my staff meetings, Mike.
Yes, sir.
5 seconds. That's all you get.
Yes, sir. You know, we have a term back at the White House Military Office when we do things right and perfect, presidential quality. That was presidential quality, sir, so thank you for that. In lieu of, speaker gift for this, we're going to donate to the Fisher House on behalf of our panel here. I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize retired 4-star General Lester Lyles, who's in the audience. Sir, yes, sir. Thank you, former Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force and also the Commander of Air Force Material Command. So thank you for your presence today, sir. I appreciate that. I also saw another 4-star out in the exhibit hall. General Hobbins is out there as well, and he was our warfighting integration chief and also commander of USAFE. This concludes the plenary session for today. We do have another set of theaters sessions that are ongoing right now. There's also the networking reception that will be out there in the exhibit hall, which has just gotten started. I want to extend our thanks to Carosoft, Sienna, Comcast Business, Juniper, and 10X National Security for their support in this reception. We're going to open the day tomorrow with a set of theater sessions, followed by our first keynote at 9:30, 9:30 a.m. And you can find the details of the rest of today's and tomorrow's agenda on the TechNet Cyber app. So I ask that you please join us for the reception out there, and then we'll see you back tomorrow morning, 8:15 a.m. for our theater sessions and our 9:30 a.m. keynote. Again, thank you, and well done, General Glavy and team.